Welcome to another Walter Football video. I'm Charlie Campbell, Senior Draft Analyst. Before we get rolling here, I suggest you click the settings, speed it up to 1.25 or 1.5. All right, let's get into this week's mock. A lot of big changes at the top of the draft. Again, my mocks are picks of what I think NFL teams will do, not what I think they should do. A lot is going to be changing here in the weeks and months to come. NFL teams just had meetings in mid-February as a scouting staff, really starting to dig more into the draft process, but it's still relatively early. We got medical evaluations coming up. That's going to ding some players, could cause some guys to get dropped off boards. You have the coaches that are going to get involved in the spring. That's going to shake things up. The pre-draft interviews are going to shake things up. So a lot of big changes in this week's mock based off some of the information I was getting from these pre-draft meetings and where teams might be sitting on some of these prospects and what they currently have and how the quarterback changes and everything are affecting the league. So let's get into it. First overall pick, Jags, Trevor Lawrence, no-brainer, generational quarterback. Give the Jags that franchise guy to build around. Absolutely lucky Jacksonville to have the number one pick in a year with a quarterback prospect of this caliber. So the Jags really won the lottery there. Let's see if they can take advantage and build it up around Lawrence to win big. Second overall, big change here. I have the Jets taking Kyle Pitts, the tight end / wide receiver from Florida. He is a positionless player. He's the most dynamic receiving weapon in this draft, and a lot of teams in the league have him as the second highest graded player in the draft. So if you follow the board, Pitts would be the next one to go off after Lawrence. Now, that being said, quarterback decision comes into play here. Will the Jets stick with Sam Darnold if they can't get Deshaun Watson? From what I hear right now, I think the slight lean is towards staying with Darnold, but it's still a lot more to go in terms of the whole evaluation process. From what I hear, they're going to go through it all as well, and that was reported on NFL Network. They're going to do the whole process before they make a decision on Sam Darnold in terms of evaluating the quarterbacks in this draft, the veterans available. So stay tuned here. But if they stick with Sam Darnold and you don't trade down at 2, I don't project trades in the mock. A lot of projected trades, like say the Lions at 3 last year, just don't materialize because it's really hard to trade high in the first round. Teams don't give these picks away. A lot of teams aren't willing to pay the price to move up that high. So it's trades. It takes 2 to tango. Much easier said than done. That being said, Kyle Pitts would be such an asset in the Jets offense. Give them a true number one receiving weapon. Can be that F movement tight end. Can be a wide receiver out on the edge. Could be kind of somewhere between just a freak mold between Mike Evans, Calvin Johnson, and Travis Kelce. He's in the mix of all those guys as kind of parts of all the trio of great players. So you put a weapon like that, that's really going to help Sam Darnold in year 4 and really make the Jets offense a lot more dynamic, create a lot more mismatches, and make that team just much more potent offensively. All right, third overall, I have the Dolphins taking Jamar Chase, wide receiver from LSU. Give Tua another weapon across from Devontae Parker. Make it tough on team safeties with those 2 potential number 1 receivers across from each other. Could really help the Dolphins offense make a big jump in year 2 with Tua. Fourth overall, I have the Falcons taking Justin Fields, quarterback from Ohio State. Even if Matt Ryan comes back, Fields can sit behind him for a year or 2. Perhaps the Falcons can trade Ryan, get something for him, let him play for a championship before his career is over. But at any rate, they could use a long-term starter. A new regime there in Atlanta can take Fields, build around him for the long haul. Fifth overall, I have the Bengals taking Penei Sewell, left tackle from Oregon. This is a no-brainer pick if Pitts and Chase are off the board. It's those 2 and Sewell, I think, is really the decision for Cincinnati. Chase, I'm sure, could be a big consideration given how well he played with Joe Burrow and A.J. Green nearing the end of his great career. But Sewell gives them a franchise left tackle, a guy to protect Joe Burrow in the long term. They got to build up that offensive line. You move Jonah Williams to improve another spot when you move him. So taking Sewell upgrades that line at 2 spots, which is badly needed. So that makes a lot of sense for Cincinnati. 6th overall, I have the Eagles taking Caleb Farley, cornerback from Virginia Tech. They've needed a number 1 corner on that defense. Farley could come in, really help improve the talent in that secondary. With Jalen Hurts, I could definitely see Pitts or Jamar Chase in play here, but they're off the board, so I could see Philadelphia looking at the defensive side, getting a potential number 1 corner for that defense. 7th overall, I have the Lions taking Jalen Waddle, wide receiver from Alabama. Give them a home run hitter, a guy that can stretch defenses vertically. If they're going to go to a ground-based offense, Waddle makes that play action a lot more dangerous with his speed and playmaking ability. Kenny Galladay is going to probably leave in free agency. Marvin Jones could be gone as well. They could use some long-term answers at receiver. So Detroit definitely, I think, will be in the receiver market here in free agency and the draft. 8th overall, I have the Panthers taking Zach Wilson, the quarterback from BYU. Obviously, Carolina wants to upgrade the position. They tried and failed to trade for Matthew Stafford. David Tepper, Matt Rule are being aggressive about finding an upgrade over Teddy Bridgewater. Zach Wilson's a nice fit in Joe Brady's offense with his intelligence and recall and skill set. I can see him being a quarterback that Carolina would be inclined to go for if they're unable to find a veteran upgrade before the draft. 9th overall, I have the Broncos taking Patrick Surtain, the second cornerback from Alabama. Denver's needed that big number 1 outside corner to replace Aqib Talib for a few years. I think Surtain could be a plug-and-play player. I think with his experience in college in the SEC, he's going to be able to hit the ground running in the NFL faster than most cornerbacks and really be a plug-and-play guy that could help Vic Fangio, help that defense get much better in 2021. 10th overall, I have the Cowboys taking Elijah Vera Tucker, left tackle from USC. In this mock, Dallas has missed out on Surtain and Farley, so I could see them changing course, getting a long-term left tackle to protect Dak Prescott. Vera Tucker's versatile. He can start at guard. He can start at tackle. So in the short term, you could play him at a different spot, and in the long run, he's that left tackle to protect Prescott. 11th overall, I have the Giants taking Devontae Smith, wide receiver from Alabama. Give them a plug-and-play upgrade at the position, a true number 1 receiver for Daniel Jones. I think he could be instant, immediate impact and upgrade for New York and something they badly need. 12th overall, I have the 49ers taking Trey Lance, quarterback from North Dakota State. Even if Jimmy G comes back with his history of injuries, you could take Lance, groom him behind Garoppolo, let Lance come along slowly, let him learn from the genius that is Kyle Shanahan, and he has a great skill set, a lot to work with there for Shanahan, so in time he could be a really good player, but he is raw, needs a lot of development. Field vision isn't there yet. He's got to learn to throw the ball with more touch as well. So he is needing development, and there couldn't be a better situation for him to go to than Kyle Shanahan and the 49ers. 13th overall, I have the Chargers taking Rashawn Slater, offensive lineman from Northwestern. Los Angeles has a lot of needs up front. They need a long-term left tackle to protect Justin Herbert. Maybe Slater can do that at 6'3", 300. That's really undersized for a left tackle in the NFL. Could have problems with length. But the Chargers need help on the inside of the line as well. So Slater makes sense because he's a safe, intelligent, tough offensive lineman. You could play him at guard or center. I think he could be a Marquise Pouncey caliber center if he gets good at snapping the ball and you really work with him there. So definitely I think this pick makes sense with all the veterans hitting free agency for Los Angeles and the long-term need at left tackle. You can take Slater and find a spot to upgrade that line and help Justin Herbert with some long-term talent up front. Okay, Next, 14th overall, I have the Vikings taking Gregory Rousseau, defensive end from Miami. Minnesota could use some more talent on that defensive line, a young end to bookend with Donnell Hunter. DJ Wonnum can be that DPR. You can have them all three go together because Rousseau has the size to slip inside, to tackle in the sub package. But he's big, he's long, he has a lot of upside. I think he would be a really good defensive end for Mike Zimmer and that staff to work with. Could be a nice value there for Minnesota. 15th overall, I have the Patriots taking Kwity Paye, edge rusher from Michigan. The Patriots really need to improve their sack production. Just was not typical New England play there this past season. If they miss out on the top receivers and they miss out on the top quarterbacks, and we'll see what free agency has an impact on the quarterback position for New England, but if that's resolved or if they miss out on them, I could see defensive end and defensive line being a definite consideration. Paye would give them a tough, talented edge rusher that has a lot of upside. Really good player to pair with Chase Winovich in terms of two edge rushers that can get after the quarterback. 16th overall, I have the Cardinals taking Tyson Campbell, cornerback from Georgia. Bit of a reach, but it reminds me of this pick last year with the Falcons and A.J. Terrell, a team that needs cornerback help. Not other great values there at other positions of need, but Tyson Campbell has upside. He has good size, played well on the SEC the past few years, so he's not a potential bust pick. I think you can be pretty confident and know that this guy is going to turn into a solid outside starter in the NFL. And with Patrick Peterson nearing the end of his time in the desert, Campbell would give them that kind of understudy and then eventual starter there with Byron Murphy. 17th overall, I have the Raiders taking Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, linebacker from Notre Dame. I think this pick makes a ton of sense. He's a great scheme fit for Gus Bradley. Could be that weak side chase linebacker, really good dropping into coverage, also has blitzing ability. Mike Mayock has a history at Notre Dame as well, so I wouldn't be surprised to see that information that Mayock gets there leading them towards Owusu-Koramoah. But Raiders have needed linebacker help for years, and this pick just makes a lot of sense given the Gus Bradley hire. 18th overall, I have the Dolphins taking Micah Parsons, linebacker from Penn State. Parsons is lower in this mock. He could probably is going to stay in the mid to late portion of my mocks because I've heard from teams that they have serious character concerns with Parsons. But Parsons really is a nice scheme with Miami. He blitzes well. He can play middle linebacker, has the size to play outside linebacker. You can drop him into coverage, so he fits Brian Flores well schematically, which is why I have the Dolphins going with him here. But the character is a big concern. Some teams could drop him off their board completely because of the character. He was named in a hazing lawsuit that came out last year, a while ago. But aside from that, I've heard from multiple teams that really don't like the character evaluation with Parsons. So don't be surprised if he has a slide in the draft because when that character issue creeps up, it can be pretty poisonous to a player's draft stock. So let's see how Parsons does in the interviews. Maybe he rebounds and helps himself there, but that we won't know till later on, closer to the draft. 19th overall, I have Washington taking Sam Cosmi, left tackle from Texas. They got to find a replacement for Trent Williams. Cosmi makes a lot of sense in terms of his ability to protect the passer, improve their pass protection. He's got to get stronger in the ground game, but I think Ron Rivera and that staff can develop him. 20th overall, I have the Bears taking Alex Leatherwood, left tackle from Alabama. Leatherwood's a tremendous pass protector. Big, long, quick, has a really, really nice skill set for being a left tackle in the NFL. Needed to get stronger and more physical in the ground game, show more tenacity and urgency that started to come on in his senior year. So I think Leatherwood could go in this portion of the draft because he projects as a good pass protector at left tackle in the NFL. That's a tough thing to find. His skill set is tough to find. would improve the Bears line. He's also played guard, could play guard, so you have multiple areas that he could help Chicago up front. 21st overall, I have the Colts taking Jackson Carman, left tackle from Clemson. He's 6'5", 340 pounds, easy mover. Give them that replacement for Anthony Costanzo, help build up that protection for Carson Wentz. Left tackle is one of the few needs on the Colts roster. They've drafted so well over the past few years, and having that pick at 21, there should be some really nice tackle options available for them in this draft class. 22nd overall, I have the Titans taking Jalen Phillips, edge rusher from UCLA. Tennessee has got to improve their edge rush. Clowney's hitting free agency. Vic Beasley didn't work out. Phillips has nice flexibility and versatility, so I like the fit for Mike Vrabel. You could play him with his hand in the ground. You could stand him up on the edge. He's tough against the run, has a lot of upside. I think he could end up being a really nice value and steal in the 20s of this draft class. 23rd overall, I have the Jets taking J.C. Horn, cornerback from South Carolina. Jets obviously need cornerback help. I think when you look at their draft class as a whole, they're going to be able to find some good receiver and running back help in the second and third round. There's good depth at those positions. Cornerback, not so much. So I think when you think of the draft class as a whole, they're going to have a more talented class if they look at the corners here at pick 23 than if they took a running back or a wide receiver, and then we're considering the second-day cornerbacks. I think there's a bigger drop-off. But J.C. Horn, safe player, doesn't have the most speed or twitch, but he's big and physical, a natural football player, good cover corner. I think he could turn into a really nice starter for New York. 24th overall, I have the Steelers taking Najee Harris, running back from Alabama. Pittsburgh has got to get the running game going again. We'll see what happens at quarterback and free agency and if Big Ben is returning or not. So that could have a big impact on this pick. But if that quarterback position is resolved through free agency, then I think if Big Ben were to even come back, especially you're in win now mode, you got to win this year. Very few positions can have an immediate impact like a rookie running back can. Najee Harris, great scheme fit in Pittsburgh, could get them back to more of the rushing attack that they had with Le'Veon Bell. Harris really improved in pass protection and pass receiving as a senior, so I think he would be a really nice pick for Pittsburgh that would pay immediate dividends for them. 25th overall, I have the Jaguars taking Christian Darrisaw, left tackle from Virginia Tech. Give them that blindside protector for Trevor Lawrence. If Cam Robinson comes back, Darrisaw could start at guard or right tackle, but they could use more talent on that offensive line. So targeting one of these nice offensive line values late in the first round, I think makes sense for Jacksonville. With what you're committing in Trevor Lawrence, you got to protect him, give him some help, make his job easier. I think Darrisaw would be a nice fit for them. 26th overall, I have the Browns taking Christian Barmore, defensive tackle from Alabama. Sheldon Richardson probably won't be on the team a whole lot longer. They're going to have to re-sign Nick Chubb, Denzel Ward, Baker Mayfield, and while Mayfield might not get the contract this year, that's something you have to consider with your spending this year, is you're going to need money for that big quarterback contract coming up before long. So if you don't spend it this year, you can roll it over in the salary cap to next season, make that contract easier to do. So with that being the case, I really think young, cheap defensive line talent is something Cleveland is going to look at as replacements for Olivier Vernon and Sheldon Richardson. Barmore is a dynamic interior pass rusher. Man, he can really get after the quarterback as an inline rusher. That's really hard to find. He's got to improve his run defense. I think the motor and work ethic are concerns that are hurting him with teams, but I could see he would just be a dynamic interior pass rusher if you line him up next to Myles Garrett. That's really intriguing, could provide a really good value for Cleveland late in the first round. 27th overall, I have the Ravens taking Jalen Mayfield, right tackle from Michigan, be that replacement for Orlando Brown, who wants to be traded, wants to play left tackle. coming up for a new contract. I think with the money situation there in Baltimore, needing to sign some edge rush, bring back potentially Matt Judon or Yannick Ngakoue, might be tough to pay Ronnie Stanley and Brown long term, and Brown wants to go anyway. So here's the replacement. Continue to protect Lamar Jackson. 28th overall, I have the Saints taking Trayvon Moehrig, safety from TCU. Give them a replacement for Malcolm Jenkins. Jenkins is aging, declining. Moehrig would really help that secondary quickly. 29th overall, I have the Packers taking Kadarius Toney, wide receiver from Florida. Just electric playmaker with the ball in his hands, has the speed to make a lot of big plays, is tough. Running with the ball, obviously, if you've watched Florida, you saw him line up in the backfield, do some things as a runner, wildcat, but just a dynamic guy with the ball in his hands. Really tough for defenders to cover because he's such a twitchy athlete, such a burst and first step quickness. So I think that Aaron Rodgers would love to have this guy across from Devontae Adams. 30th overall, I have the Bills taking Carlos Basham, defensive end from Wake Forest. Obviously, Buffalo needs to improve that pass rush. Basham and Epinesa could give them long-term bookend edge rushers. Jerry Hughes is aging, could really use some more young rush. And I think Basham also, with his ability to move inside in the sub package, would be intriguing for Buffalo. 31st overall, I have the Chiefs taking Zaven Collins, linebacker from Tulsa. Collins could help them at linebacker. He can also rush off the edge. He can drop into coverage. Would just be a versatile defender for Kansas City to help bolster that defense. 32nd overall, I have the Bucs taking Rashad Weaver, edge rusher from Pitt. Had a really nice 2020 season, played really well in 2018, was injured in 2019, but you see 2 seasons of good tape for him, which is typical with a lot of players that the Bucs have drafted in the early rounds. And Weaver gives them a long-term edge rusher. We'll see if Shaq Barrett gets re-signed. Even if he does, Jason Pierre-Paul is aging. You could take Weaver, rotate that trio, keep them fresh for 4 quarters. You could even have them all on the field together because I think Weaver has enough size where you could move them inside in the sub package. So I like this pick for Tampa Bay. I think late in the first round there could be some nice defensive line values available for them that makes sense in the short term with trying to repeat as Super Bowl champions, and in the long term for building that long-term roster on that side of the ball. All right, let's get to the teams without first-round picks. Now, first up, we have Seattle. I have them taking Wyatt Davis, the guard from Ohio State. Russell Wilson wants more offensive line talent. Here you go. Davis is a road grader as a run blocker, really tough and strong at the point of attack. Needs to improve his pass protection, but the skill set is there. You don't get flawless prospects in the second round, but Davis could be a nice value that plays quickly and really gives their boost to the rushing offense right away and helps that in the long run, is going to help improve that pass protection of that line. Now, right after them, I have the Rams taking Tevin Jenkins, Oklahoma State offensive tackle for the NFL. He could be a right tackle or guard. Would be a nice fit there. Maybe he can play left tackle. I'm not as confident in that projection. I know some scouts who've covered Oklahoma State who don't believe that, but some in the media do, so we'll see if the Rams share that belief. But either way, they could use more talent on that offensive line, help protect Matthew Stafford, open up holes for Cam Akers. I think Jenkins is a solid value pick for the Rams in the second round. In the third round, I have the Texans taking Rashad Bateman, wide receiver from Minnesota. I think obviously there was just the wide receiver position. That is one of the criminal, horrible moves, decimated parts of the roster from Bill O'Brien with trading DeAndre Hopkins, one of the worst trades, I think, in NFL history, recent NFL history at any rate. They need a number one for Deshaun Watson or whoever's going to be their quarterback. That Randall Cobb contract was terrible. O'Brien, I don't know what he was thinking with that deal. Kenny Stills is gone. Brandon Cooks is a limited receiver. Will Fuller could leave in free agency. So obviously this position group has just been decimated. Rashad Bateman, if he gets to their third round pick, would be a really nice addition for Houston. give them a solid receiver, maybe a solid number 2, and at that point in the 3rd round, if that's what you get, that's fine value. You can't expect to get a first-round caliber player there in the 3rd round, but Bateman would be a nice value pick for Houston. And aside from him, there's going to be some good receivers there at that part of the draft, so I think that position makes sense in terms of value and need for the Texans roster. So that's this week's mock. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Check the links below. You can read all of round 2 and all of round 3. I have that up on the site, the updated versions, position rankings, scouting reports, hot press is all coming up. Walt's mock is getting updated weekly. Check that out as well. And thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate you guys. You're awesome.